Hey, hey, welcome to happy hour. And it is ladies' night. Cheers, everybody. Let me go around. I feel like we're on the Brady Bunch. Let me go around the squares and introduce everyone. So, y'all know Heather, of course, she whose hair matches her decor. Next to Heather is Charly, our astrologer, who you hear every Friday on the show. Charly is coming to us from Key West, where it's been a little warm, I think, hasn't it? A little bit.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. A little plus like 50% on top of that. It's been crazy. Like 110, 112 the other day.
Charly was telling us they have a rescue husky, and there's like, what is it, 104 degrees, and after that the dog can't go outside.
92.
90. Oh, it's even lower.
Yeah, 92.
Yeah. So they rescued a husky that was injured in Key West, and the poor dog can't go outside. So all of the dog people here tonight, raise your glass to Charly because it's a husky that can't go out to pee. And Miss Sarah, the legend, her own bad self. So yay, I'm so glad to have you all here. We've got Deborah
Speaking of
Lee in
dogs,
Pismo Beach, California. Deborah, when I hear Pismo Beach, that's like such a beach movie kind, isn't it? Like the Pismo Beach, doesn't that sound like a throwback beach movie? Mary Ickert in Tega Cay, South Carolina, Littleton, Colorado. Hey, Michelle, darling. Oh, what a great name. Beverly Hills, Florida. Dory, I told Bob there was a Beverly Hills in Florida, and we were arguing about it because he said there was a Hollywood. I knew there was a Beverly Hills in Florida. Jessica Wallace has a husky like dog with the same problems, Charly. You are not alone. Maybe we'll learn something tonight that can help you.
Yeah.
Angela Traver, the Ramblings of a Loon, our blogger, is with us tonight from beautiful Kentucky. Lindsay Saloom is in the shower. Girl, flirt. And Bob's not even here to enjoy it. Jillo Perry's in Charlotte. Kimberly Fluke is in Apache Junction, Arizona. That sounds like a cowboy movie. So happy. Let's start with you, Charly. So let everybody kind of get to know you. You have this gorgeous accent. So tell us where you grew up.
I grew up in southern England, which is funny to say because I feel like I have to quantify that it's southern. Otherwise, it sounds like I'm just from London. And we do have like different dialects. We have South Coast sounds like me. London is a bit more like Jason Statham. You go north and you get like the Manchester and Scottish. So yeah, I'm South England, and I moved to America in 2012.
And what made you decide to move to the States?
I came here. That it was actually a previous relationship. It was a really simple, it was a boy. And then it actually happened that when that relationship went separate ways, the boy was going to Baltimore and I got to stay in Florida, which sounded a lot warmer. And I was okay with that, so.
Isn't it funny how, and Sarah, I'm sure you have a story, but isn't it funny how, like, sometimes the biggest move of your life, the one that sets everything else into motion, was triggered by like some relationship, and that person leaves your life. Like as soon as they get you to where the universe needs you to be, and you get settled in, that person is bye-bye ski, but you're where you were supposed to be.
Yep.
Isn't that crazy how that happens?
It's like,
go ahead, Charly.
It's just like the cogs that fall into place,
Yeah.
I don't believe in coincidences.
I don't either. And like when you were growing up in the UK, did you really think to yourself, I know what I would like to do is live in a place so hot my dog can't go outside?
No, not at all. I was in love with Florida. My family had brought me to Florida as a kid, but that was, Disney. Of course I was in love with Florida. And it was like a lot less hot back then. And I still love Florida, but I'm now starting to see there's so much more that I can like explore in the whole States. And I never had that in England,
Oh, America is, until you get in your car and drive from the East Coast to the West Coast, you can't even fathom how vast and gorgeous this country is. And Cheryl Swanson Newton said, didn't Miss Sarah make an appearance at the last Lamarbecue? Yes. Yes. And she'll be at the next one too.
I'll go anywhere for bacon.
Charly, like I really want you to do a cross-country road trip. And I also want to say, because a lot of people are kicking Florida's ass right now, it's not the people of Florida and the state of Florida. It's the government of the state of Florida. So, like, I'm real protective of the people of Florida because they were badass awesome a minute ago, and they're still badass awesome. And we have so many friends and listeners there. And, you know, none of those people are like, great, I didn't want to be able to have flood insurance anyway. None of our people, like Regina and all of our regular people that are at happy hour who live in Florida, none of those people are like, abso-freaking-lutely, jack my life up. So let's not kick Florida because it's not really fair to the state. As you know, because it's your adopted home. I mean, have you not just felt so incredibly welcome in Key West?
Absolutely. And like most of the places I have traveled, I have kind of like sprung across to Colorado a little bit. I do like certain places in Nevada. And I think that America in general is very welcoming for me. It was like living in a movie compared to British life, which is very conveyor belt, run of the mill. And there's nothing wrong with that over there. A lot of people compare England to Oregon, you know, that really dreary.
Oh, the climate. Yeah.
And but the people are also kind of similar in the sense that they're doing their own thing. And that's cool. Everyone should keep themselves to themselves. But sometimes it's nice to be, I don't know, I've always felt a little bit more motivated over here. And that's because you can do anything really over here if you're willing to work hard and, you know.
It's true. So you felt like when you got here that you were living in a movie.
It was literally, not to sound cliche, it was like the American dream thing. And I don't like saying that because it's so expected and I could, you know, it's probably sewn on a cushion somewhere, but it really was the feeling. And I'm like, wow, I can do anything as long as it's good, obviously, but you know, I can do anything. It was just really inspirational.
That you could be anything, right? Yeah. That you could name it and claim it, which I think, I mean, Sarah, you would agree with that because you're a self-made woman. You know, you've had no choice but to be a self-made woman.
Exactly.
And it is true, like for all of the imperfections and stuff, you can just badass your way through it here if you have some work ethic and just a little bit of luck, you know?
My very first boss said to me, and this is when I was doing hair, I was 16 years old, fake it till you make it. And I was like, huh? Fake it? What? I didn't know anything about faking it at that time. But I did. And you know what I mean? I've had help along the way, obviously, but no, I've always just been exactly, this is what I'm gonna do. If it don't work out, then I'll try something different.
I mean, I think of where I started in life and not where I am right now, but where my children are. And it's so night and day. Like, I mean, there's no way that I should be okay when I look at where I come from. And this is also very true for Heather, right? There's just no way that the story should have had anything approaching a happy ending. But even when the system is gamed against you and there are obstacles, because there are, like it took me forever to pay off my student loans, for example, and it took me forever to get dental care and all. I mean, I was in my 30s wearing braces. Like it wasn't like there weren't obstacles, but they weren't obstacles that you couldn't find a way over or around. Yeah, you might exhaust yourself doing it and you might be a little bit crazy at the end of it, but you were on the other side of it.
And it didn't kill you.
Yeah.
All the things that I've been through and had to live through, it didn't kill me.
So that just didn't feel the same for you back home in the UK?
I don't know. I don't think people let their minds dream big enough. And it was, you know, you went into a family business or you went to college and you got a job in a bank or insurance or something like that. And those were all great jobs. These were all really good things. But there was no thinking outside the box. And I grew up in a really creative way. I was like a tap dancer. I know that you did some dancing, didn't you, Sheri?
I'm a very, very, very mediocre tap dancer, yes. But you're like the real deal, like a real dancer.
Yeah, I did like a lot growing up. And then, you know, that was very, very different from the kind of banking jobs. I even tried a banking job. It wasn't for me. I'm a bit more kind of creative and progressive. We were talking about how I kind of wish I would be born in the future when things are far easier automated. Like I don't have to cook 3 meals a day and I can just, you know, have some kind of easy way to do that. So, you know, back then I was a bit of the wild child, the weird enigma, more creative than I seemed logical. And over here, that's like praised.
Oh, especially in Key West.
Mhm.
Like you're
Mhm.
the least weird person that you've ever met in the Florida Keys, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. But I love that. I came and I'm like, wow, no one's looking at me for whatever reason for what I do or whatever. And it's not even that crazy, a little bit of astrology, and I'm really into like theater and arts and stuff. So over here, that's praised.
Yeah, that's just nothing. And how about you, Sarah? Like, what in the world dragged you into radio?
Um, so okay, let me back up. I was a lifeguard, and then I was a hairdresser. I had my license to do hair before I even graduated high school. So I did hair for a long time, and then the carpal tunnel got bad. So I was like, I'm going to go to college. What the hell was I thinking? So my degree is actually in social work, and I was working for CPS at the time, and I was working early Head Start, and so I had full-time school, a full-time job. I was child care director at the YMCA, and a part-time job in theater. And I was like, I've got nothing to do at 5 a.m. and our local hip hop station needed an intern for the morning show. And I was like, let's go. And then I wouldn't leave, so they had to pay me.
I think it's so funny that both of us have that social work background, which
well, it all goes together. You know what I mean?
Oh, you
working
need
with children, exactly. Working with children, doing hair, like it's all the same thing, just different venues, if you will.
My family and the cast and crew of the Bob and Sheri show, they needed a full-time social worker in residence in the worst possible way. Somebody had to step up and take that job.
Exactly. And sometimes I feel like I'm still working for CPS.
Oh, you are. You are. You're just
But
spinning the hits while you do it. So,
yeah,
I want to say before I forget, hold up your water bottle. We're giving away 10 of our brand new Bob and Sheri water bottles, Heather. So
Yes.
hold that. So, the blue ones, I loved the blue one. Of course, they discontinued it and stopped making it. So this one has, show them. This one has a built-in straw. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to take the cap off. So how do you win one? Every comment counts as an entry. And then at the end of happy hour, Heather has some magical and totally scientific technology that spins all the entries together in a big bingo ball wheel, and we'll pull 10. Heather will notify you through Facebook Messenger.
Yes, it'll come from the Bob and Sheri page. But I won't ask you for any information there. So I'll notify you through Messenger, but you won't be asked to give any information via Facebook DMs ever from the show.
Yeah, so be on the lookout because we're giving away 10, so there's a really good chance you're gonna get one. So keep an eye on your messenger for something from the show. So let's talk a little bit about astrology. Charly, since you're an astrologer, how did you make I mean, I know it was something you were always kind of keenly interested in. How did you make that transition from your career in dance to this as like a full-time passion?
I actually was trying to prove it wrong. And I was like at a point in life where I'm like, oh, I need some answers, some really deep answers, and I'm going to eliminate every philosophical approach or, spiritual approach. I'll go through them all. I don't care. I even actually started with botany, like growing plants, plants as herbs and stuff like that. And that took me into physics, and physics took me into the universe. And then I came to astrology, and I said, oh, that's going to be easy. And 8 years later, I'm still here, and it's obviously it's a growing industry that helps, but there's just something, it worked and it continues to work for me. I mean, it's not 100%, but that's user error. Sometimes I'm only human and I can only read certain things, but yeah, it was just to disprove, and I end up still in the thick of it.
What I find so interesting about astrology, and I know there are people that are just like rolling their eyes or whatever, but I find it's so interesting that you can go so far back in history to like the ruling families of Europe, the Vatican, like all the way back to ancient Egypt, back. And probably even before them, because let's be honest, like we don't really know the full history of humanity or this planet. We only know what we know, and then we extrapolate, right? But no matter how far back you go, there's astrology is like this constant. It was huge in the Renaissance, right? Huge among philosophers and scientists and priests. So what it really comes down to is, let's talk about like the alignment and movement of planets and the stars, and why it is that that can be impactful for an astrologer.
Well, I think there are all these like microscience reasons that people can spout off, and like any kind of science, it's really just explorative until it's conclusive. So the first thing about astrology is it's empirical. You have to try it first. You really do. And I guarantee if you try it, like everyone has probably read a sun sign thing at least one point in their life and been like, wow, how is that aligned? And, you know, when you're part of something, it's like any cog in any system. Everything matters. The alignment of everything matters. And, you know, on the science level, we have neutrinos coming from planets, but on the bigger picture level, we are just this ball with all these other balls going around this big thing that if that turned off, you know, stuff would go crazy for us. So I think everything's super, super connected. And, you know, I might not have the specific words to explain how. Neutrinos are the closest I can get to it, but it just...
The quantum field, yeah, like
the quantum field is everything is connected.
Yeah. Because everything is everything's energy when you get right down to it. And one of the really gratifying things about understanding that one small facet of physics, everything's energy, then you realize that you have always been and will always be. Now, will you always be Miss Sarah? No, but you haven't always been Miss Sarah. You've been a million other gazillion other things, including maybe a blade of grass, you know, and a happy sheep. We don't know, because
I don't think I was a sheep. I don't like wool.
we don't know. Like you know, some of the most fundamental aspects of our existence are mysteries to us. We don't understand what human consciousness is. We don't understand how the four of us are sitting here having this shared reality with everyone else who's joining us tonight. We don't even know how that works. So before we dismiss and throw everything out the window, it's really interesting to pull back and go, what are we? And what do we really understand? Which is why, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago on Happy Hour, because as y'all know, I'm a complete outer space nut. But some of the revelations in that congressional UAP hearing were so provocative, because they're not nobody really said aliens from another planet. They said non-human intelligence, and it could mean a gazillion things. So if you're freaked out by this, and I know people who are, I've been having some wild conversations about this subject, including at the dentist's office the other day. If you're freaked out about this, and I get it, you're who you are. You're who you were yesterday. That hasn't changed. All the things that you never had any control over hasn't changed. Like, what's changed, really? Sarah, what's changed?
I changed my shoes earlier.
That's it, right?
No, nothing's changed. And funny story is, so when we were, you know, we were kids, people are like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said, first of all, I don't want to grow up. Second of all, I want to be a hairdresser, a DJ, and an astronaut. So 2 out of 3 is in bed, but now I've discovered that you can send some of your ashes to space when you're dead. And I'm like, let's go.
You might get all three.
Done.
Interesting question from Lindsay, who says, can I ask where, if anywhere, God or any omniscient deity comes into your belief in astrology?
Well, it's interesting. It is very interesting. I went a lot into the Bible with this, and the planets are essentially meant to represent gods. That's why you have, like, Mars is the god of war, and you have Venus, the goddess of love. So there's kind of like that connection to it. And, you know, some people, some really hardcore astrologers, I mean, I tend to sit in a little bit of everything because I would like to, you know, just absorb it all. But some hardcore astrologers talk about how the sun, and then, you know, Jesus being the son of God, you know, there are so many words that cross over that could be people talking about the solar system. I mean, they looked up and they saw stuff. And, you know, God, there's still that kind of notion of looking up. So there's a lot of crossovers with a lot of religions and stuff. And in astrology, the planets themselves are the gods. They are representative of things that are godly powers.
Don't you all find it super interesting that, and this is like the UFO nut and the anthropologist in me, but how all of these cultures, both in currently existent and cultures that are gone, all their legends are like, and then the gods came from the sky and brought us knowledge, right? Like, at what point? I walked into the room the other night, and my daughter and I had gone somewhere, and I walked into the house, and my husband was watching something on the Science Channel, and it was a full screen image of a painting from ancient India. And there were these bright blue godlike beings that were descending from the heavens and gesturing at this group of really excited, enthusiastic monkeys that were dragging a canoe into the water. And I'm standing there in my living room, and I'm looking at my husband, I'm looking at the TV, I'm like, don't you see it? Go ahead and make that leap and make that connection. We're the monkeys. Go ahead and see it. And how can, like, believing in all of this doesn't cancel your belief in an omniscient divine creator at all.
Mm-mm.
If anything, it kind of reinforces it, to be honest, for me.
Well, I had a similar conversation with my pastor several years ago. Not my current pastor, but anyway. So the little kid on the sixth sense, and he's like, I see dead people.
Mm-hmm.
I see dead people. I don't have conversations with them. I get like vibes, and people are like, okay, now you're going a little kooky, but what? Like, how can we shut that off when we're kids? When we're kids, we can see these things.
Yeah.
We understand these things, and you shut it off at some point because you're told to. And my parents tried to shut it off, but my mom was kind of the same way. And so now I've moved into this section of my life where I'm like, hey, I see things, and I kind of get vibes of like, don't do that. They always say, listen to your gut.
Mm-hmm.
I'm listening, because usually it's somebody from 1792 that's going, no, don't do that.
Well,
sometimes I totally ignore it.
Time is only linear for the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
Time itself is chaotic. It's everything everywhere at all at once. You guys want to hear a spooky story that I just learned? This is so good. So I have a friend, and she has a grown daughter, and her daughter has two very little girls. Okay. The oldest is 6. And so we were, and this is my friend, her name is Anne, and she's way into a lot of the same stuff that we're talking about. And so we were chatting about it. We were talking about, like, what is the soul? Like, what does that even mean? Because one of the things that's coming out in this latest round of UAP stuff is this idea that as humans, we're containers for like souls or consciousness or whatever, which I kind of love. I love the idea that, don't you feel like a container anyway? Don't you feel like there's the you that's you is riding around inside Command Central here, and everything else is just meat that won't behave? Okay. So we're talking about that. And my friend tells me that her 6-year-old little granddaughter said to her, my sister Sophie was supposed to come first, but she got scared and came back. And so I came first. Her daughter had a miscarriage before the older girl was born. And of course, she's 6 years old. She doesn't know what a miscarriage is, or that her mom had one. So, like, talk about like the goosebumps, the hair on the back of your neck. And why not? Like, why would you think that if you believe in God, and God has created this eternal flame and all of these beautiful souls that are lit from that single flame, why the hell do you think you'd be snuffed out after a hot minute on this shit show planet? Right?
You can't, like
why do you even want to believe
tell me that we're all new. Yeah.
Someone explain to me why you want to
new.
believe that nonsense. Like, why do you want to believe that God was like, hey, Sarah, you're pretty special and unique, and there's no one like you in the world. Oopsies, you're gone. Like, why would you even want that?
Right. He's too busy listening to the prayers of other people. You know what I mean? He's got inboxes full. You can't tell me that we're all new. Like, this is not a new creation. I was telling Heather and Charly before we signed on, I'm fairly certain that I used to be like Billie Holiday, or I was somebody in the 40s, because I'm so like, I just love that whole vibe. And That's just like a random thing to love. I don't know. We're
Mhm.
not new.
I mean, do
Just
you
a remake.
feel, Heather, Charlie, do you feel like I envy people that have, I really want to do a past life regression, but I envy people that have some certainty because like I'm pretty sure I was never anything but a peasant wench. But do you have any sense, like Sarah does, that there was another time and place for you?
I've always been told I was kind of an old soul, even when I was younger, that I was way mature for my age. But I don't know. I if it was, I'm sure it was, because my belief system is such that I don't think that, um, me personally, I don't believe that like when they say matter is never created or destroyed.
Just
I
transform.
believe the human soul is that way too. For me, um, and so for me, I've just wherever I came from, it may have been from a giant soup, and they just ladled out, this one and threw me
People
back
soup.
in. But I don't have any memory or sense of it. But I do have friends that have done past life regressions, and they have distinct memories or experiences or dreams even. And I know not a lot of people believe that. It's not very popular, but there are people that really do feel that way.
Charlie?
I've done a past life regression. I've done 3. I've taken them as a participant. I don't know how to run that myself, even though I'm in the spiritual world. And I do like past life work with people via their natal chart. Like I worked on someone's chart a while back, and this person looked like their past life was Dr. Seuss. The way that writing showed up so much in their chart, and there was lots of stuff, and it turns out that that person has a desire to write children's books. So there's lots of really cool things about that. But when I did the sessions myself, I got 3 distinct past lives. One made me cry, one I just couldn't understand, and the third one left me wondering more. So I'm a big advocate of that. It's kind of like hypnotherapy, I guess. It's like a form of regressive hypnotherapy. And the lady told me something really important. She said, don't bat away the stuff that comes into your mind. And I said, but what if it's just made up? And she said, how can it be made up? Why would you have made this up? It came because it is, energetically imprinted somewhere. You didn't, but I mean, one of mine, I recalled being a doctor who had a hand injury. This is really weird. I had a hand injury and I performed a surgery without telling the practice, the hospital I worked for, that I had a hand injury, and I messed up on the surgery and I couldn't practice medicine again. And when I came back from that one, I was like, I didn't want that. I would never have made that up as a past life. Why couldn't I have just been Marilyn Monroe or something,
Right.
And at the time, I was finishing my book and I had the worst carpal tunnel. And the lady told me, are you trying to make this book perfect? And I said, oh, of course I am. It's words and it's going to be read by people. And she said, you need to stop. And because my book was in like a self-help genre, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to talk from here or whatever. And the carpal tunnel went away. And I'm just like, wow, like there was too many things, like Sarah said, too many things for it to be a coincidence,
I love the way you say perfect.
Perfect.
It's a perfect way to say perfect. I wish I had a British accent. I agree with you. Like I'm super fascinated by, I'm just fascinated by almost everything. Like it's hard for me to discipline myself because everything is interesting to me, but I've read a lot of the reincarnation literature and a lot of near-death experience literature. And one thing is so interesting to me is there's a huge program at the University of Virginia. I've talked about it on the show where they study past life recollections in children. And it is amazing how mundane these recollections are. These are not people going, and I was a famous scientist or movie star. These are like, I lived with my family in a house with only 2 rooms, and we had a dog with a bad leg. Like the specificity and how mundane it is. You go, I mean, if you were going to make something up, like go for it. Be Nikola Tesla, like go for it. Why are you some poor scrubby kid in a 2-room house with a lame dog? And it's just fascinating when you look at it. And I completely get why people are freaked out and push back on it. I do. I get it. Because it's more comfortable. It's kind of like when you're in a bad relationship and you know you need to end it, but you're tired at the very thought, and it's more comfortable to stay. And so you stay a little longer than you should because it just seems easier. It's more comfortable to, keep yourself in a box. But it's not more interesting, right?
I'm laughing. Lindsay Salem said, "Can we pause to appreciate how uncomfortable Bob would be with this convo?"
He
Facts.
absolutely hates
Facts.
this. But I will tell you, so like my whole radio career is one like delightful happy accident. Like I never dreamed that this was what I would do with myself. But when I met Bob, and I was working as a television writer and producer when I met Bob. And so there was zero idea that I would ever work in radio or work with this man. But I remember meeting him and we just clicked instantly. And there's no other way to say it. And I'm sure he didn't experience this because he's such a skeptic and debunker that he would deny it. But I felt like, oh, there you are. Now we can get started.
That's exactly what I said the day Jeff Davis picked me up from the airport. My program director picked me up from the airport. We'd obviously never met. And I got hired from 10 original colonies away. And I was like, okay, you're my person. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi,
Look
Jeff.
what Joe Penny said. My stepfather said that he's sure he knew me at another time. I came into his life at 3. I'm 64. And the last time I saw him before he passed, he asked me if I remembered him telling me that. And yes, I did. So, like, wouldn't it be, let's just pretend that it would be absolutely amazing to discover that not only are we eternal, but that we're here to help each other. And sometimes the only way to help each other is to deliver the most excruciating lesson. And if you can accept that, then it's easier to forgive the people that hurt you because that was the job. Right? That was the only way you were going to learn at Charly or Heather. Like that was it. That was the only door that you could walk through. So what would be so bad about believing that? Look at this little munchkin. I just want to eat this dog up. Look at your little face.
Oh, she smells like Frito, so feel free. Don't let the face fool you. She is a terrorist. She's constantly yelling at her 80-pound sister. This is Penelope Ann.
Hello, Penelope Ann. Look at her little face.
She's
Kevin, my husband,
burping. Gross.
you guys, my husband the other night said, I don't know if I want one dog or 2, and I am not ready for another dog. Like there will not be another dog. We could get a chicken and an alpaca before I'm ready for another dog.
I want an alpaca. I've determined that I'm fairly certain I'm going to die petting something that I shouldn't. Because I'm not going to lie. If an alligator walked by me, I'm going to be like, hey, buddy. Like, why are you friend-shaped if I'm not supposed to pet you?
Sarah, you would. Sarah would be like, Wally Gator is a swinging alligator in the swamp
like,
as he ate her leg.
Why are bears cuddle-shaped if you're not supposed to hug them?
Oh, look at John Callahan. Hi, it's John from Pennsylvania. I tried Sherry's brownie recipe the other night. This is a legit brownie recipe. This isn't a brownie recipe.
I was about to say,
because I do, my reputation precedes me. No, this is a real recipe. It was in the Bob and Sheri newsletter. Frank Young said, I just dialed in, and can I say that all 4 of you are smoking hot? Yes, you can, Frank. In fact, you can say it again. Put it in all caps this time. Absolutely. And Frank, since you just got here, I'll remind everybody that we're giving away 10 of our brand new Bob and Sheri water bottles, which Sarah can demonstrate like one of the Price is Right show models. And all you have to do to enter one is have a comment in the chat stream. So Karen Lineberger, y'all, says, OMG, I've had 2 boyfriends that as soon as I met them, I knew them in a previous life. I didn't know the circumstances, but I knew.
Did you run the other way or run to it?
See, if I feel that way about a person, I've learned that it means that I should leave immediately. If they feel comfortable, there's something wrong.
Do you
That's
ever wonder
funny.
though what, like, there's a gazillion, how many people are in the world? Does anybody know?
Like
There
7
are,
billion.
Many.
yeah, so
All
many
of them.
people in the world. And you meet so many people,
Mhm.
but you really only feel like, ooh, about a handful. Like, do you know how many people I've met in the course of my life in a job like this that's so public facing? And yet, like so many of them immediately jump out of the giant ocean of people, and you're like, you're one of
Mhm.
my people. I don't know why, but you're one of
Mhm.
the people.
That's I mean, I may millions of listeners and whatnot, and other radio personalities, but like Sherry, I think the day you and I met, we're like, "What's up?"
Oh yeah,
You
like
know what I mean? It was just instant.
it wasn't even like "Hey, Sherry, have you met Sarah?" It was kind of like, Sherry, this is Sarah, and I was like, damn straight, that's Sarah. You know what I mean? Like you
Although,
just sort of.
although when I'm driving around in our station vehicle and your picture's on the side, like literally under my arm, people are like, "Are you Sherry?" I'm like, "That's Sherry."
You should
Like,
always, anytime you're like really having a day and you're flipping people off and throwing stuff, you should say that you're me. And then when you're being well
no,
behaved, you should go, no, I'm Sarah. Like you should
I
blame me.
can't
I
do
tell
that in
people
a
that,
station
blame me for
vehicle.
everything.
Nah, never, never.
So listen to what Deirdre Hughes says. She said, it's not a past life thing, but my mom told me that when I was little, we were looking at pictures of my great grandma. I never met her. And I pointed to her and said, she was the one that watched over me.
Yep.
Yes.
Hmm.
I've had so my father's father passed when my dad was like 19. This was eons before I came along. Um and I remember being little and in my bedroom, and I remember I didn't know what a fedora was, but I'm 5 years old going, he's wearing a fedora. And my mother's like, "What are you talking about?" So here's Frank in the corner of my room at night in the zoot suit, 1940s zoot suit. And I just knew his name was Frank. I didn't know he
Mhm.
was my grandpa, but like he was there. And my dad
Hmm.
never really talked about my grandfather. Like there was I still don't understand what happened with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like I said, "Yeah, Frank was at my room last night," and my mom was like, "Pardon?" And my dad left the room. So, okie dokie.
Mhm.
Yep,
My
craziness.
my people were spooky, and I was raised by older people, so you've got that older generation. Like I was raised by my grandmother, and her parents emigrated to the United States. She was born here shortly after they got here, but she was raised in the old country, and my grandparents could not really read or write. So it was, and you want to talk about Charly, like an American success story. They came to this country with nothing. They had negative nothing, and they made a whole life, and then they're here. We are generations later. Um, but my grandmother was a devout Catholic. Like I can't tell you how old I was before I realized that the Blessed Mother was not a neighbor and was actually Mary, Jesus's mom. Because the way my grandma talked about the Blessed Mother, like I thought she lived 2 doors down and they went to church and go together. But for all of that devout, like faith, big time. My grandmother took in children from Catholic charities. Like she had foster children and she was way all mobbed up in the Catholic Church. But she believed in all this other stuff too. And so when you're raised in that environment, there's no stigma. Like you don't ever feel weird about saying that you saw something or that you felt something because let's be honest, the dead ancestors were kind of everywhere,
Mhm. I know
Listen,
a nurse, and I worked with a nurse, and she was hugely into astrology. And when I kind of asked about her movement into that, she said because she knew there was other stuff going on when she would see people pass in the hospital,
ooh,
because they would talk to someone like, "Oh, there you are," someone they hadn't seen for a minute since that person had passed, and they would see and talk, almost like a transition phase. That person's coming to help them across. And she said she saw it so much. This is a really successful CEO of a hospital in Denver, and he went into the mystical realm with a lot of stuff because of seeing that so frequently in the hospital.
do you guys remember there was a commercial or a PSA? I can't remember. It was before COVID. but it was about hospice, and it was a hospice worker in a room with a patient, and the patient was dying, and the hospice worker went and opened the window so that their spirit and soul could travel through the open window. I remember like seeing that and having so many feelings about that. If you've ever known hospice workers, hospice nurses, palliative care nurses, they are a very special kind of human. Like they're suited up for a team of humanity that is really unique. I don't know if we have any palliative care nurses in the chat with us tonight, but they know things, they see things. And part of what they know and what they see is what gives them the ability to nurture grieving families.
And not only handle it after the fact.
Charly, do you feel like there's a specific sign that inclines people to be that kind of like healer or in that sort of career path? I know
Yeah, there's like, I call them like cheat codes. A chart is full of so many cheat codes that if you want to, you know, pacify this or elevate that, and usually these sensitive.
Oh no! Oh, Charly, come back.
Dude,
we might have just had a gust of lightning or something come through Key West. We'll give Charly a chance to jump back in.
Shoot her a message.
It's so true though, Sheri, like you were saying, like people have that nurturing and it gives them that ability to handle it afterwards as well. Like, I mean, I was home with my mom for the last 19 months of her life every day. And I knew we shouldn't have lived together 25 years ago, but having had that opportunity, it made it so much easier for me after the fact.
Sarah, my grandma, who was everything to me, died in 1996. And that whole experience was a terrible blur. But her hospice nurse, Kathy, came to the funeral. And I would not leave after the visitation. You know, we're like Italian Catholics. And so we have open casket viewings and then we have big drunken parties. Like it's a thing, right? I would not leave the visitation. I couldn't bear to leave my grandmom alone in that strange place. And no, you couldn't talk to me. I was out of my mind with grief and despair. And it was Kathy, my grandmother's hospice nurse, who came back into the room and sat with me. And it was what she said to me and the way that she held me and kind of eased me over the threshold that made it possible I could cry, that made it possible for me to stand up and leave that room. Those people are freaking angels. So Charly, we lost you briefly, but you were telling us like what it is that kind of pushes people into this area.
I see a lot of, I work with law enforcement. There tends to be a
wait, we can't hear you. What happened, Heather? What happened?
Charly, you may have to reconnect your microphone from the little gear at the bottom.
Okay. It should be connected. No?
I can hear you a little bit.
You can hear me?
Do you have a gain?
No. Oh,
technical difficulties.
How about now?
That's better.
Okay.
Yeah, that's better.
So when I like see recurring signs in certain like professions, in the nursing field, I see a lot of Cancers, a lot of Libras, and a lot of Pisces, which all correlate to like these nurturing things. Like Pisces in the chart is the whole medical world. Like the whole medical industry is under the sign and the influence of Pisces. But those are the prominent ones I tend to see. And then, you know, there's some kind of other signs beneath that. But those are the top three. And like when I see in law enforcement, I tend to see a lot of Aries.
You won't find a Capricorn nursing because we come into the room and go, excuse me, you were supposed to have a bowel movement 20 minutes ago. Chop, chop, what's up? Like we're very regimented. We can't work with you that way. Oh, hey, Charly, Jason Tannery says it's so nice to finally put a face to the voice that is Miss Charly. I can listen to her talk all day and night. And now I know I could look at her just the same. Love hearing about my sign every week. I mean, you're ridiculously beautiful. Like, you know that, right? Like, we don't need to tell you that.
It's everything's smoke and mirrors, you know, good lighting. I grew up learning how to put makeup on and stuff. So You want to hear something cool about astrology and professions?
Yes, yes.
There was a company in Austria that got sued because on their hiring ad, they were looking for people in marketing areas, and they specified the 4 signs that they were only going to hire.
Shut up, they did not.
They did, and it was Capricorn was one. There was an Aquarius in there, and I can't remember the other 2. I want to say Virgo or Gemini or both of those. And they got sued, and they actually they won. The person didn't win against them because they said it's not discrimination when it's against zodiac signs, you know.
So
But they
that's not
did
a
it again.
protected.
So they did it again, and they kept
Interesting.
hiring based on their preferred zodiac signs, which I thought was hysterical. I thought that was great.
Wow.
You know, I can see it, seeing all the traits that certain people of certain signs have, but to go as far as hiring a team just based on that. That's
Well, I know
like
that if I was hiring someone to do a safety inspection, please bring me a Virgo as quickly as you can find one, right?
See, I've never really paid a whole lot of attention to what signs are what. Like, I know I'm a Scorpio to a T, like to a T. Other than that, I don't really pay attention. But like, I know a lot of people are even talking about like cancers being nurturing. My mom was very nurturing. She was a Cancer, but she was also hell on wheels. So I'm like,
yeah,
she doesn't fit the categories to me. So I don't know.
it's the pinchers. I mean, you can get a lot of symbolism,
Oh yeah,
from their picture, which is a
yeah.
bit
She
like
was.
tarot, and you know, a crab, they have a pinch.
She
They
was
have a
very
pinch.
pinchy.
We have John Haney joining us tonight, and he's asking, what about Geminis? I think Geminis get a tough rap, you know, as being like, oh, listen, do not fall in love with a Gemini. Like, they're just going to break your heart and be all kinds of unpredictable. So let's talk for John. Let's talk about Geminis.
The thing I love, absolutely love about Gemini is the entertainment value of expression. And that's in like every possible way. You can learn something from a Gemini, or you can laugh at something that they're saying, or you can get like brought into, you know, them recalling a story. It's such an expressive sign. I'm like,
Charismatic.
yes, a big way with words, you know.
Yeah.
Lots of comedians are actually Gemini.
Yeah. I have found that Gemini men, I am invisible to Gemini men because they know that, oh, this biatch is going to organize my stock drawer and put me on a schedule, and that's not going to work for me. Barbara Welsh is saying, okay, what about Taurus?
Taurus is it's the typical slow and steady sign, but it's because it's the sign of security. And, you know, I don't know how many people are familiar with a wheel. There's these 12 slices, and each slice pertains to a sign and some kind of like, you know, action in life. And Taurus is always the steady, secure kind of thing. Not the fastest by any means, but you don't need to be fast if you're building for the long term always, you know. So, and I like Taurus. Taurus is very like flashy. Taurus have really good taste.
My firstborn child, my daughter Olivia, is a Taurus, like capital T Taurus. And I'm going to now confess like a really embarrassing thing that is absolutely true. Charly, she was really late. Like that child, like the Taurus she is, that child was not interested in getting out of bed and being born. She was so late that I called my doctor who just retired. This was my doctor for like my whole adult life. I called my doctor and said, listen, this baby is late and it's hot because she was born on May 19th and I'm huge. And if we don't induce, I'm going to have a Gemini and I don't know that I can do that. That is the God's truth. And there was a pause, and my doctor, Dr. Stevens, was like, well, you're definitely overdue, and I guess we can't have a Gemini.
Oh my God.
And I brought that Taurus baby right under the wire because I just felt as like a capital C Capricorn and a capital C other things too, as some of you know, that I just was unqualified to handle a Gemini baby. And Charly, you know me, I think you agree that it was better that I had a Taurus.
Oh yeah, for sure. That earth to earth connection, way better. Gemini can run rings around a lot of things, so it's
Just no can do. And so when people are like, astrology's the Lord, I'm like, really? Because I scheduled my C-section around that. So excuse you.
Oh my God.
Excuse you.
So let me jump into the comments. Medea, what a beautiful name, said, I used to transport people who had died at home on hospice for the local funeral homes. And for the most part, I could sense that their body was just an empty shell. But there were a couple of times that I felt like their energy and spirit was still in their body. And the feeling would be so overwhelming and spooky that it felt like they were going to open their eyes or take a breath at any moment. I am in awe of people who work in that business, that industry, so critical. But I think that for some of us, I interviewed the medium and clairvoyant James Van Prague for my True Weird Stuff podcast, and he said some people don't realize that this life has ended, and they take their sweet time departing.
I used to, I had a few clients from when I was doing hair that had passed, or their mothers, whatever. So I've done funeral hair and makeup a few times, and that's happened. And I'm like, normally I'm not creeped out by much, but like there's
Yeah.
this one woman, I was like, I was fairly certain she was about to wake up. And I'm like, okay,
Isn't
I'm
it
gonna need a
funny
big tip.
how you can feel like anyone that's
Mhm.
lost a person or even a pet? Like I just lost my crazy little dog, Sam Nash. One instant he was in my arms and he was Sam Nash, and the next he was gone. And I was holding his body, but I knew he wasn't in it. And
Mhm.
you've had that experience with people too. But some people, Sarah, kind of they hang for a little
Mhm.
while.
Oh, I'm gonna hang around. I'm gonna be here. Trust, believe, because it's warm in here.
There's a small list of people that I need to haunt. Just very briefly before I transition, we're getting a request for Pisces. Jason says, I'm always curious about my sign. So tell us a little bit about the Pisces.
Pisces, like just as a sign, super intuitive. Like they're one of the signs that need the strongest boundaries, because you step out into that world and no one else cares about the energy that they're giving off most of the time, and a Pisces is just going to absorb all of that. It's one of the spongiest signs on the wheel. So Pisces need way better boundaries, and they need to go away for them, and they don't need to explain it to people. And like in terms of what's happening for them, um life hasn't been the clearest, and it's not meant to be for maybe another year or so, because it's unfolding. There's this whole concept of like unfoldment for a Pisces, the going with the flow. That's the fish, I guess, in the water symbolism there.
They're so gentle, the Pisces. You're right. Like my godmother was a Pisces, and all she wanted the simplest things from life and couldn't seem to land them. And she would get pulled in this direction and then in that direction. That's so interesting to think about it that way.
I just saw,
Wow.
I want to point out two comments actually that kind of mirrored each other, that both said, why are Pisces always last? And actually, if you look at a natal chart of 12 signs, Pisces is the last sign. And at first that's kind of like, okay, no one wants to be last, but it's an accumulation of everything that's come before it. So it's last because it carries the knowledge of everything else. It understands the independence search of an Aries, and it understands
Cool.
the depth of a Scorpio, and the ambition of a Capricorn, and Pisces has all of that. And that is why it can actually be kind of difficult to be a Pisces, because you have all of it at once. It's kind of like slow down and take a nap. If you're a Pisces, take more naps, please.
Tony,
Weird, but
Can I
Tony
switch
G,
teams?
Tony G just jumped in and said, I miss Sag, didn't I? No, we haven't talked about Sagittarius. Tell us. I had a boyfriend that was a Sagittarius. What a charismatic, charming, hot mess of a good time that was. But disastrous for a Capricorn, as you know.
My husband's a Sagittarius and has definitely been one of the biggest kind of growth relationships ever. But I love the youthfulness of a Sagittarius, and I love the like slapstickness that there can be sometimes, and the carefreeness. Like Cancer and Capricorn, because they're opposite on the wheel, and even like Virgo and Scorpio all have this like intensity, and then a Sagittarius is like, And there's a little bit of like, it's the Joker card in tarot. If anyone is like familiar with that, it's the Joker card, not the Joker card, like the Magician, which is the Joker card. Having fun, being free. So that's why I like a good Sagittarius. But if I want him to step in line, it becomes a bit difficult.
I had a great time with my Sagittarius boyfriend. He was sexy and fun, and he talked so much. And girl, no, listen, Heather, like people think I talk a lot. I only talk on the show, and then I really don't have, like, the rest of my dialogue is inside my head. This man talked so much. We went to the grocery store together one night, and he talked so much. I'm not proud of this, but we were in the canned vegetable aisle, and there was like a 32-ounce can of San Marzano tomatoes. And in my brain, I fully played out crushing his skull with it just to silence him. Bless his heart. Like, it was not his fault. Like, he just talked
Oh yeah.
so much.
My best friend in the entire world is a Sagittarius, and she brings to the table all of the things as a Virgo that I lack. That spontaneity, that like, oh yeah, it'll be fine, it'll work
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
I don't have any of that it'll work out in my brain, but she does
Yep.
in spades, and I love it.
Yeah.
Don't you wish you had some of that? Like, my husband's an Aquarius, and he's like, just bang on the drum all day. And I'm over here going, with what?
Oh my God.
I love being a Virgo, but if I could change my sign, I would flip to Scorpio in a heartbeat just for the fun of it.
They're so
Welcome
sexy.
to the team.
Oh no!
Welcome to
Don't you
the
think the
team.
Scorpios are the sexiest, Charlie, of the zodiac? Like, they're mad
Scorpios are
sexy.
hot. Scorpio is actually the sign of, all that intimate, good stuff, that fun. That's the sign of Scorpio. That deals with on the body the reproductive areas, let's call it. So.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why
Yeah.
my inbox is so flush with people sliding into my DMs, and I'm like,
DMs.
They
I'm like,
can feel
I
the
am.
energy. Yeah, they can feel that.
Somebody asked about my my email signature. It has pronouns on it, like she, her, they, whatever. They're like, what is that about? I'm like, that's just telling everybody that I'm equally uninterested in everybody. Like, any human on the earth, please get out of my DMs. Thank you, but no.
We have a couple of Aquarius people in the chat. And I'm sort of like, they're so creative and confident, but not worried, like, about talk about Aquarius, Charlie.
Aquarius are like they're like the little zappy geniuses. Aquarius is a really progressive sign. I'm sure everyone's heard of us moving into the age of Aquarius, so that suggests it's something that we've not already kind of experienced. And Aquarius is very connected to the technology world if you're looking at normal economic astrology. So you tend to have these really like creative geniuses that have these like pop moments of ideas that are great, but they need to write them down because they go as quickly as
Oh, they forget. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Maybe I should have been that.
you could kind of have one Aquarius that has so many a list of so many amazing ideas, and then there's paralysis from which one to do, or a list of no ideas because there's so many, grabbing one to write it down is a whole big thing.
We're gonna run a little bit over tonight. It's 8:00. Usually we wrap up. We're gonna run a little bit over because there's some other star signs that people want to ask before we get to Aries, because we have some questions about Aries. I have a question about Aquarius. So, like, the other day, my husband, it was Amazon Prime Day a couple weeks ago, and I got a great deal on these super cute. I'm a sneakerhead, like these super cute Adidas that I've been wanting. And my husband, when they got delivered, said to me, now, so my question is this an Aquarius thing or a dumbass hillbilly with a death wish thing? Okay.
Oh
My husband said to me, woman, if you'd stop buying shoes, you could retire someday. Is that an Aquarius thing?
Yeah, that's an Aquarius thing.
Yeah. Like, excuse me, I got these shoes at a great deal on Amazon Prime. These shoes are not standing between me and retirement any more than avocado toast is standing between Heather and home ownership. Okay. Like, it's just not. All right. Talk to us about Aries.
Aries are, they're here to deal with a lot of independence. So I have like a soft spot for Aries. They are a fire sign, which means they tend to be very intense for my wateriness. But they tend to have a lot of family stuff happening just because part of their lesson this lifetime is to learn confidence in independence. and that can be cushioned sometimes by family, like rightly or wrongly. It can go one of either way, but they're really meant to kind of fashion their own path in this world. And so you kind of got to let an Aries be a trailblazer and get out the way, and you might get swept up and taken with them. But it's one of the really fiery signs.
They are really. My older brother's an Aquarius. My children are an Aries. My children's father is an Aries, and that's a man. Like, the cliche, Aries, the sign of war. My children's father would argue with the sun about shining. Like, that man is freaking ridiculous. Okay, with an emphasis on the ridiculous. Is that an Aries thing, or again, is that just kind of unique to him? Because he's so like, our Aries, do they tend to be more conflict oriented, more argumentative?
That's actually a compatibility thing with your sign. So
Capricorn, yeah.
Aries and Capricorn, they are 3 away from each other. So there's like these degrees in astrology. Believe it or not, astrology has a lot of mathematical stuff to it, like a 90-degree angle, 120-degree angle. And so Aries and Capricorn are 90 degrees away, and that's a solid conflict right angle, meaning that each person can each person carries like this strong structure, and that means someone has to submit, and that's not going to happen.
Yeah. It's unfortunate he was wrong so much of the time. Ed Early would like to talk about Cancer, if we could.
Yeah, that's my sign, Cancer. Well, I love how we got on earlier that Cancers aren't just soft. We're seen as soft, and everyone's talking about what sign that they would like to be. I would choose to be a Capricorn if I wasn't a Cancer, because I have the ambition of a Capricorn in a Cancer kind of setting. So people go, oh, I'm like, I want to conquer something, or like, you take me seriously now. And it's like, oh, and I just want some power. The pinches, I want power before it gets to the point of the pinches. So for Cancers, you do have a sharp side, and people tend to kind of bless you a lot.
I can tell you, as a Capricorn, when you say things like, I would like to be in charge of this, they're like, oh, thank God, I am done working. Let's talk about, we've had a question from Nancy Honeycutt about Virgo. She said, I need to confirm what's wrong with me.
I'm also a Virgo and would like to know what's wrong with me.
Let's dive in on the Virgo.
It's a detail sign, it's a detail and perfectionism sign. And perfectionism is obviously never completely reached, but someone has to strive for it. And it happens to be the Virgos. And it's the sign of the everyday activity. So Virgos have to be so in their everyday activities. There's no day off there. You need to be structuring and thinking and managing multiple things at once, and it's always going to be that way. So it's best to learn to love it, really.
I think you'll love hearing this, Charly. Roxanne just jumped in and said, I'm a longtime Bob and Sheri listener. I've become interested in astrology hearing Charly's weekly segments on Friday shows. I'm a Leo, but I don't think it fits. We always think of Leos as these beautiful, charismatic, desirable, lucky attention magnets. And I think that actually, I know Roxanne, like, all of that fits except for the attention magnet part. Roxanne doesn't cultivate that. So talk to us about the Leo.
Leo is a really like prominent sign right now. And for everything, there's polarity. So of course, if you have a sun in Leo and it suggests real confidence, it could be the equal opposite end of the spectrum too. It depends on what you kind of use having that tool at your disposal. But Leos have some really big things going on this year. Like Pluto has been in and out of Aquarius, which is their opposite sign. And so there's a lot of change going on. So Leos won't even feel themselves like themselves they were 2 or 3 years ago right now, because some kind of metamorphosis is happening for them and Aquarius equally. And it just spins everything, it just spins everything for them. And you can have people who connect more to a moon sign or their rising sign than they do their sun sign. And you have these cycles in life, your cycles change at age 12, 24, 36, at like 7, 14, 21. So you have these layers and layers of cycles. As long as, you feel good in the moment, as long as you're feeling happy with like direction and stuff, let life happen to you. And if you're not the biggest Leo of Leo, you know, maybe you're not meant to be. Maybe you're meant to be the softer side.
I was just
Um,
thinking too, back to the earlier part of the discussion, maybe she isn't really a Leo. Maybe she was a Capricorn, or you know what I mean? Like,
There is
who
that. There's
knows?
a lot of mistakes in time. Like you,
Mhm.
a 37-minute difference makes a lot of difference in a natal chart. Like, so if I don't have someone who has an exact time, I have to kind of go through this pre-session and say, I can't give you exact stuff because you don't have the exact time.
Mhm.
A chart that changes in 37 minutes can be the difference between, you know, a Sagittarius and a Capricorn.
Mhm.
Or
Or even that, but like, I mean, like past life type thing. You know what I mean?
yeah.
If
yeah,
that's something you believe in, you know what I mean? That could be a past life situation. Like, I was supposed to be a Halloween baby, but I like to stay in bed, and I came out on the 11th. So I wouldn't have been a Scorpio, but Scorpio
Here
fan.
we are. Well, on today's show, Charlie, your forecast next week for Scorpios, because Max is a Scorpio, was kind of blood curdling. So tell Sarah what next week looks like, and all of our Scorpios with us tonight.
for
For
Scorpio, it's not getting any assistance anyway. It's having to do it.
Okay. So,
Business as
okay,
usual,
2023,
girl.
cool.
Yeah.
It's doing it
Good.
all yourself. And there was one main point that said that you're going to have to make a decision that does impact you and other people. However, no one else is going to put in any input. So you have to make the decision yourself. So it's kind of a responsibility, you know.
That's unacceptable.
That's unacceptable.
So
Send it
Sarah,
back.
this is really crazy. Like you're gonna have a week where no one helps you. What will you do? It's so unfamiliar.
Oh my goodness gracious. Yeah, no, yeah, I understand that. But not having input on direction. Because Sherry, you know I'm gonna call you and when I need to make a decision and be like, what do I do? You're right. I don't
Everybody
I'm just gonna
needs
buy
a
more
good
shoes.
Capricorn friend in their life to help them make decisions.
This is so
I
true.
have a Gemini sister who lives in my house. And yeah, that's not any help.
You have a Gemini sister?
She needs
I
my
was
help to
so
make
afraid of a
decisions.
Gemini that I had an induced labor. Please, I'm so scared of Geminis. Like I'm legitimately. We have Geminis in the chat tonight. I'm just going to tell you, if y'all approach me in a dark parking lot, you can have everything. Like I'm not messing with a Gemini
Right?
ever.
They're
Well, you
entertaining AF though. Absolutely entertaining.
You liked my younger brother when you met him at LaMarbecue.
He's
a Pisces,
adorable.
but
I love him so much.
he's also every other sign in his chart is a Gemini. And when I read looked at his chart, I was like, "Oh, your poor wife, because she's a Leo."
But
My.
Dylan is the most sweetest of Pisces. Like you just want to slap him into your pocket and bring him home and keep him as a mascot. He might have some
Yeah.
Gemini in his chart, but he shows up as a Pisces. This if you're not like into if you're Bob, oh my God, this conversation has you slamming your head repeatedly into a door. But you know, it's fun.
Bob is talking to Finn right now, like, what is going on with these girls? Why are they doing this?
Selena DiNapoli asked where Bob is tonight. We gave him the night off because we wanted to have girls' night and also wanted to talk about stuff that he would be like, "Whoa!" And so we just gave him the night off so he could have dinner with his lovely wife. But you know, like, so I just have to ask, like, for people that are like, oh, aliens and astrology, is your life not hard enough? Like, do you not ever want to escape taxes and laundry and the freaking dog is sick and the car payment? Don't you want to escape that and talk about something completely different? Don't you?
I have to admit, so when I turned on the news this morning, I'm getting ready for work, and they were talking about the Congress thing, and they were legit talking about UFOs. I put my mascara down, like, am I getting punked? Like, is this an Onion report?
Is this really
like, what?
happening? Yeah.
And I was like, this was not in my bingo card for this year. But at this point, the last few years, I mean, should any of our bingo cards have anything written in pen? Because frankly, it's okay, UFOs. I mean, I totally believe in UFOs. You can't tell me that we're the only ones here. Come on, we are not that big. We are not that important.
And you can't tell me that it's just random. Look at the four of us and everyone that's here tonight. What are the odds that we would have ever met Charly? What are the odds Charly would have ever met Heather? Sarah, you and I would never have collided into each other had it not been for this business where we met. Like, isn't it fun to think about all of the ways that your little ship of destiny is being guided that you know nothing about? Isn't that fun?
That's why I don't. People always say, like, do you regret anything? Not one bit of it. There's some things I wish were a little bit easier or different, but I don't regret any moment in my life because I wouldn't be right here. I wouldn't have the education that I have. I wouldn't have the strength, the drive, the motivation that I have, and I wouldn't have all of the collection of different languages of curse words that I have had I not lived through every situation.
Well, you're Irish Italian, so your profanity game is so
Cazzo.
firmly on point. So before we go, Charly, what is your favorite like American food that you had never had until you came to our shores, and now you're like, how did I live without this?
I feel like this is going to sound kind of disappointing because there's so much out there, but we never had mac and cheese at home.
Oh,
You never had mac and cheese?
No, pasta wasn't with a cheese sauce. That was really that wasn't
Like
a
real
thing.
mac and cheese or no, like Kraft mac and cheese, none of it?
Just
No mac and cheese.
Mac and cheese was never really a meal. It was like potatoes, vegetables, and some form of protein. And I came over here and mac and cheese in the gas station, and there's mac and cheese everywhere, and cheese. Everybody loves cheese, so that was one of the biggest things. I'm like, wow, these two foods put together are actually amazing.
Do not ever feel like you need to apologize for discovering mac and cheese because it is truly one of our great contributions to the world. And you're right, it is everywhere. When I first moved down south, you go into a restaurant and you'd get a menu and there would be like all the vegetable sides, broccoli, green beans, sauteed mushrooms, mac and cheese. I'm like, I have moved to a place where mac and cheese is a freaking vegetable. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
See, I will always go for the vegetables first, but Jeff Davis, my program director, laughs at me all the time because I don't like cheese. Like, how does my last name end in a vowel and I don't like cheese? I like Velveeta, but I don't like cheese.
Well, I'm not a big cheese eater either, but pizza and mac and cheese are where I find it. So, Sarah, my question for you is, of all of the people that have come into your life and did not have what it took to be worthy to stick around, which astrological sign would you kick the ass of hardest of all the relationships you've had? And as a Scorpio girl, I know you have opinions on this. Come on.
I've never really paid attention to what other people's signs were. I have a situationship and he's a Taurus, but I can't really think of. I'm the type of person, I don't ever really, if I dislike you, if we have a disagreement or whatever, I just leave the situation. Like, I'm gonna love you from over here. Bye. So I don't really have that kind of, like, I don't have like any kind of disdain for really
I'm gonna ask Charly, but it seems to me that if you were gonna have a situationship, and we may have to define that for some folks, because like Jason just is coming out of a separation and he's like, I will definitely be taking someone's sign into consideration. But it seems to me that a situationship, you should have it with a Taurus. That seems like a good, solid option, Charly.
I feel like that's the treat yourself option.
Yeah.
Treat yourself because the Taurus is luxury.
But isn't Taurus like the opposite of Scorpio? Or am I
so you usually find that signs on the opposite sides of the wheel.
Come to think of it, there was a girl I dated that was also a Taurus, and we meshed like very well.
You have to explain situationship because people are like, oh, we need to do ladies' night again.
That's a topic for another day.
Next time on ladies' night, we're all going to do face masks and we're going to wear our pajamas with no bras and we're going to explain what a situationship is.
So I wear my rubber ducky pajamas.
Yes.
Woo! So Heather, my question for you would be, because Heather and I talk about like weird, deep stuff all the time, right? And Heather is like firmly in that camp, of that metaphysical camp. What question would you have for Charly that's astrological?
I mean, I guess like my biggest thing right now is why as a Virgo is the Venus retrograde affecting me so heavily. But we talked a little bit about it earlier.
Because so there's a really cool system in astrology where you can see like people who you will vibe with and who you won't vibe with before you even get there. So any sign that is the sign that comes before yours tends to be sitting in your blind spot, in your spiritual blind spot, and they can kind of lead you astray. So whichever sign comes before you tends to be a naughty influence. And the Venus retrograde is happening in Leo, which is the sign before yours, so it's just dredging up everything from your blind spot essentially, and that just doesn't sound fun.
It's not fun. It's not fun.
So with that
But
said,
accurate.
what about people that are in your sign? Like, okay, so the two men that I work with most closely on my station, I was born on the 11th, Jeff was born on the 12th, Bill was born on the 13th. And obviously we're all Scorpios.
That's cool.
And we work cohesively, like without even have conversations. So is that like a normal thing, like within your sign to vibe?
There's a kind of like definition scale with that, because if your chart is oriented so that your sign, even your own sign, is in your blind spot, then even you could be troublesome to yourself. But this is like what Sheri said earlier, like what are the chances of all these people having like these interests and stuff? So imagine like a matrix. It's all these matrices across the world, and like every Cancer is on the same matrix. I mean, they're going in different directions. That's why this web is pulled across this vast, massive planet of ours of energy and connectivity. But there's that familiarity, and you're for some reason somehow in the same crew, and I guess those three people of that crew have met, and you're doing whatever that was intended to be from that meeting.
And of course you're going to butt heads because you're Scorpios. It's very difficult for Scorpios to not be dominant. Max is a very unusual Scorpio. Yeah, Max is a super unusual Scorpio. I have to say, Mariposa Libra has posted one of my favorite comments of all time. She said, maybe that's why I hate my husband. He's a Scorpio, not a Taurus.
Maybe that's why I'm thoroughly uninterested in any kind of relationship like that or whatever.
Before we go, I want to make sure that everyone can find you guys. So, Miss Sarah, if you'll tell them where they can find you.
Under a rock somewhere outside of the shoe store. At
Miss Sarah on Facebook. So go friend Miss Sarah with an H on Facebook, and you can also find Miss Sarah on Instagram. Charly.
I'm mainly, most of my stuff is on Charly King Astrologer on Facebook, and my weekly posts through the Bob and Sheri show. That's kind of where I am right now.
So next time we do ladies' night, face masks, jammies, no bras, and we're really going to get gritty.
I dig it.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. And I will remind you that when we wrap up, check your Facebook Messenger. We're giving away 10 of our brand new Bob and Sheri water bottles. Mariposa Heather is asking, will you post the links to Charly and Miss Sarah's Facebook pages in the chat stream? Can we do that?
Yeah, I'll come back later and have to comment it, but I will do that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So thank you, and thank you for hanging with us. We ran a little bit late tonight because I wanted to make sure that anybody that asked about their zodiac sign would have a chance to hear it. We will be back with Charly. We usually are with Charly on Fridays. This week we went on Thursday because the People's Movie we just had a lot going on, so we moved everything to Thursday. But we'll be back with Charly as we are on every single Friday. We'll let you know well in advance when we're going to do Ladies' Night again, so that you can chuck your bra, put on your jammies and a face mask, and we're going to talk real filth. I promise you. Thank you, Charly.
A bra tonight. That's why I wore a hoodie.
Thank you, Miss Sarah. Oh yeah, like
Okay.
Some of us take the bra off as soon as the sun goes down. Thank you all for joining us for happy hour. We really appreciate you because, you know, you're the whole reason we freaking do it. So thank you for being with us tonight. Cheers, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Cheers.